Okay, let's begin. We're running a little bit late today, and we apologize for that, but sometimes that's the way it goes. A couple of things. The postcard that you received has a mystery speaker for the next time. We have the date, but I was not able to secure a person. I had several people looking into whether that date was good for them, but by the time this event came and I wanted to let you know when the next one was, I didn't have that information. So at least you know when it will happen, right? So we'll keep that date. I have a question about advertising. We try to do it in different ways. How many of you saw the advertisement in the newspaper? Okay, quite a few of you. What about Facebook? Okay, a couple of you. And what about the mustard seed? How many of you saw it at the mustard seed? Okay. All right, so just kind of depends. And how about from the last card? Yeah, okay. So I guess just have to keep doing a big variety, right? Oh, okay, yes, the bulletin board in the hallway, that's true too. All right, well, we're just really glad to have you here with us tonight. I want to introduce Dr. Walt to you. I know that many of you know him from previous lectures probably that he's given, some here, and he really travels the world to give lectures on lifestyle health. So Walt and his wife, Mary Lou, who is also here, but I don't see her at the moment, own the mustard seed in Newport, and they have been there for 21 years. Prior to that, Walt was the healthcare administrator for 20 years, and then he came to Newport and opened up the mustard seed. I could tell you a lot of stuff about Walt. He has a 30-day program on Facebook that always begins January 1, and it is a lifestyle to health program, goes for 30 days like I mentioned. He also has for 15 years now, there has been a lifestyle health program going on in Rwanda that he's quite involved in. And believe it or not, he gets people from very big dignitaries to come and participate in that program. Right now, he's running a program currently, right? Isn't that what you said? And he has many bankers from Central Bank attending that program. So we're just really glad that Walt could be here tonight to talk to us about getting back to the basics and what is the root cause. So again, before he starts with his lecture, let us pray together. Dear Father in heaven, again, we thank you for bringing us here. We thank you for the knowledge that is available to us now to understand health, to understand how our bodies are made and what they need to function best. I pray that you will be with Walt Cross tonight as he presents, that we may understand and learn from his lecture. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Evening, y'all. How was Vittles? Did you like the haystack? I like haystacks. Tonight, I'd like to share about something I'm kind of passionate about. I like looking at trying to figure out what root cause is as we look at health issues. And for the first 20 years of my work, it was more of a treating signs and symptoms. And then I found as I started looking at lifestyle health, It was more of a root cause issue. And as I'll describe later, I see a huge change in allopathic care today, and where I'm seeing more and more looking at root cause than when I worked there. Getting back to basics, what is the root cause? Whatever you're in, how many of y'all grew up on a farm? Do you look at root cause on a farm? Absolutely. You know, whether it's you learn, your daddy and your granddaddy taught you the anatomy and physiology of a tractor, and you wanted to find out what was right, why was it not working right, or why was this field not growing right, or you know, you're going out and you're testing the soil, you looked at what crop work grew best on this field versus this other field. You're looking at root cause. So that's what I'd like to look at tonight. But I'd like to start out. How many of y'all know Dr. McCullough? This is a video Dr. McCullough did, and to try to explain his understanding of lifestyle health versus allopathic health, or allopathic versus lifestyle health. And let's try it out and see if it works here.
There once was a town called Allopath. It had many people, streets, and cars. But due to budget limitations, there were no stop signs.
We just keep going. Pedal to the meadow.
Not surprisingly, traffic accidents were common.
Look out!
Cars would crash into each other at nearly every intersection.
Did I do that? Oh, boy.
As the population of Allopath grew, traffic accidents increased to an alarming level.
I've been in another accident. That's 3 today.
Out of desperation, the city council hired Dr. West, a doctor of the motor division, MD, to find a solution. Dr. West spent days examining traffic accidents on an hourly rate.
I see. Looks lucrative. Must analyze.
The townspeople of Allopath watched on with great curiosity while Dr. West went about his work.
This guy's good. What's he doing?
After weeks of investigations, Dr. West called the people of Allopath to a town meeting for release of his report.
Here it is. Traffic accidents are caused by skid marks. I have found and documented a near 100% correlation between traffic accidents and skid marks.
Oh.
This town has skid marks disease. Why didn't I think of that?
I should have thought of it with my brain.
Thank you, thank
It's amazing.
Colossal, stupendous, fantastic, and he's good, too.
The city paid Dr. West his consulting fee, then asked the good doctor to propose a method for treating this skid marks disease.
I recommend a particular chemical coating, Teflon.
Teflon.
Teflon!
Oh, no, Teflon.
The city immediately placed a large order with the chemical company that manufactured rhodoceuticals. Within weeks, the streets were completely coated and the skid marks all but disappeared. But things weren't well in Allopath. Traffic accidents quadrupled. Hospital beds were overflowing with injured residents. The town economic advisor, observing the sharp increase in economic activity, announced that Allopath was booming.
Times are good.
Things are great, except that we're getting creamed.
But the traffic accidents continued to increase. And yet, there were no skid marks.
Not again. It keeps happening. I thought we had this figured out.
We gotta get to the bottom of this.
Well, the city council was baffled. They thought they had solved this problem.
You said it!
They called a town meeting, and following a short discussion of the problem,
Hey, who's that old guy?
an old hermit who lived in the forest just outside Allopath addressed the townspeople.
Who's that old guy?
There's no such thing as skid marks disease. No skid marks disease? Outrageous! This disease was invented by the rhodoceuticals company to sell you Teflon coatings. That's crazy talk. This is a simple problem. All we need to do is build stop signs and traffic lights. Then the traffic accidents will cease.
Crazy.
You must take up the Teflon. That's a lunatic.
He's a nut. A big nut.
Preposterous.
The townspeople were horrified to hear such a statement.
Personally, I'm horrified to hear such a statement.
They knew skid marks disease existed. Dr. West had told them so. But what may happen if stop signs actually work?
How will that affect our booming economy in Allopath?
It was at that moment that most of the townspeople realized their own jobs were at stake. If stop signs were built, nearly everyone would be unemployed.
Yeah, what about them?
We'll all lose our livelihoods.
They all had jobs in emergency response services, car repair shops, hospitals, and Teflon coating maintenance. It was important that everyone continued to believe that skid marks disease was the cause of the accidents. Out of fear of losing this economic prosperity, the townspeople voted to create a new public safety agency, the Frequent Drivers Association. The FDA's board members were chosen from among the business leaders of the community, the owner of the car shop, the owner of the ambulance company, and, of course, Dr. West. Soon after its inception, the FDA announced that skid marks disease was indeed very real.
Skid marks are
People who promote stop signs are quacks.
Pay the cost.
This pleased the townspeople of Alapath. With the FDA, they knew their jobs were safe. They still had a lot of traffic accidents, but at least their jobs were secure. And so life continued in Alapath. For a short while, at least. As traffic accidents continued at a devastating rate, more and more residents of Alapath were injured. Many were left unable to work due to their injuries. In time, population dwindled. The once booming town of Alapath eventually became little more than a ghost town. No one was any healthier or happier or longer lived. And the hermit? He outlived every single resident of Alapath. In his spare time, he constructed stop signs, waiting for the next population to come along and hoping they might listen to an old hermit with a crazy idea.
And that so-called crazy idea is simply this. The mere treatment of symptoms is not the answer. When it comes to your health and well-being, looking and feeling younger, avoiding diseases, increasing your energy, and living a long and fulfilling life, prevention and real cure are the only real answer.
Who's ever heard of Dr. McCullough? Interesting fella. So I'd like to look at some basic keys. I used to call 8 keys, and y'all have heard me talk about that, or 8 laws of health. But I picked up another one as I read, and I'd like to share. And now I use 9. And Benny asked me the other day, "What's that 9th one?" She was wondering what I was talking about. So let's talk about those. And I find there's 8 basic keys, and if we follow those 9, shall I say now, 9 basic keys, it makes a difference. It's amazing, and let me share them with you. So the first one. See if this works. Well, there's another way of doing it. Oh, here we go. The very first one is trusting God. And if y'all have ever come see me at the mustard seed, what's the first thing I say to y'all? Pray. It's so important. Because God's the one that does healing. He's the medical director. You know, someone came in today and they said, "Well, what do I do? I don't know what to do." I said, ask God, because He knows. And have you ever prayed, gone to buy a car and you pray on it and you go, "That just ain't right. I'm not at peace." But yet you go and there's another car you're looking at and you pray and you go, "I'm at peace. I believe that's the car God wants me." Y'all know what I mean by that? And that's the nice thing of living here in the Bible Belt. And I go places all over, as Rhoda was saying, and some folks, that's just plumb over their head. They have no idea what I'm talking about. But trusting in God is very important. And God is the one that provides wisdom. God's the one that provides healing. And if there's healing come from anything, it's going to be coming from God. God blessing it. The next item is the new one I added, and that's be happy. Have y'all, who's read "A Merry Heart Doeth Good Like a Medicine"? And I really find that there are people who enjoy making other people be miserable. Have you ever met anybody like that? I mean, they're just mean as a striped snake. I find a huge correlation between being happy and being healthy, or being just tormented by whatever's going on in their mind. It can affect their health. And I find, I'm not talking about being Pollyanna, but just be happy. Nutrition, or what's the fuel that you put in your body? And I had an opportunity last week to be with a group of folks out in Phoenix. Dr. Ben Carson was there. Dr. Peter McCulloch was there. And the new fella who is over Make America Healthy Again. You have Kennedy, but Kennedy's over HHS complete, but this guy is over the Make America Healthy, and his name's Dale Bigtree. Who's ever heard of Dale Bigtree? Interesting guy. I mean, this guy, he's on fire. He's wanting to look at what's in our food. An example, I have a good friend over in North Carolina. He's internal medicine, called me a couple months ago. He said, Walt, did you know that they have now found if a field has been sprayed with Roundup, you got corn, soybean, wheat, alfalfa, that when the Roundup gets in that soil, it binds to the magnesium and the plant can't pull it up. A buddy of mine down in Chattanooga, he's a hospitalist, and he called me a couple weeks ago and he said, Walt, you ain't going to believe this. He's a head hospitalist there, and he said, I was noticing that a lot of the patients coming in are deficient in magnesium and potassium, so I gave a standing order that all admissions must have a manganese and a potassium drill. And he said, we're running 90 to 95% of the patients being admitted deficient in magnesium and potassium. That's huge. That's significant. And why? And that's what Bigtree's looking at. You know, what is it going on with our fuel? Is there stuff in it? And as we were talking last week, he says, if you can't pronounce it, you might not want to eat it. And he was really pressing to look at the labels. You know, how many ingredients are there? Is the list this long, or is it just 4? Do you remember in class with Campbell, and he talked about the strawberry Pop-Tart at Cornell? And they dissected to see how much strawberry was in the strawberry Pop-Tart. 0. It was over 100 chemicals in that strawberry Pop-Tart that made it taste like a strawberry. And that's what Bigtree's looking at. And that's what we're looking at tonight, is what is in our fuel. Where's the best place to get your fuel? Your backyard, out of your garden. That is the best, because you know what soil's there, you know what's amended, you know what seeds you're using. Are you using heirloom, or are you using hybrid? And we can talk a whole lot on that one. You know what it's sprayed with. Are you picking it vine ripe, or are you picking your Mater's Green? Now, who likes Mater sandwiches? That is my favorite. And if Mary Lou wants to make me real happy, she'll make me a tomato sandwich. But would you go pick a grain tomato and put that on that sandwich? Who's grown hay? Who's grown hay? Anybody out who grow hay? Yes, you've grown hay. So as that hay, you've got your bell curve, and when it's up at the top, you pray that it doesn't rain. Right? You don't want your hay here, and you don't want your hay there. You want it at top nutrition. You want to pick that food vine ripe. Is what you want to do. Water, proper hydration. Very, very important. I have so many people tell me, Walt, I just don't do water. You need water. Exercise. And exercise is so important. Dr. Walter Kempner at Duke University, he looked at little humans and he looked at big humans. And Kempner was a very smart man. He was from Germany. And he was a medical doctor, and he also had a PhD. I think it was biochemistry. And Kempner looked at little humans, and he saw that they exercised 4 times a day. They exercised in the morning. They had recess in the morning, recess after dinner, recess in the afternoon, went home and played and had chores. 4 times a day they're out there exercising. So he applied that philosophy to the big humans, the adults. And he found that they significantly improved faster by exercising them 4 times a day. Sunshine. It's a big one. Making the right decisions, temperance. And it's not just I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs, but do you make the right decisions on what you stick in your mouth that you eat? Do you make the right decisions on what you drink? Do you make the right decisions on who you run with? Did you make decisions on, did you choose who your children ran with? Yeah, you did. Do you make decisions, good decisions on who you run with? Can that make a difference on this? And can this make a difference on this? Absolutely it can. Fresh air. Very important. Or do you breathe like a chihuahua? You need diaphragmatic breathing. You know, like the baby. Who plays a wind instrument? Anybody play a trumpet? Can you hit a high C without good diaphragmatic breathing? No, you can't hit it. And singing. If you're going to sing, you got to have good diaphragmatic breathing. So it's not just pollution, it's just, do you have good air exchange? And then rest. So very important. And these are just basic keys that I find that can make a big difference in how healthy we are before we even start talking about chronic diseases. So let's look. Now this is from the United States Surgeon General, and as I mentioned, I'm seeing a lot of changes as I'm reading. I read a lot from Harvard, from Mayo Clinic, from Cleveland Clinic, NIH. I like going to NIH for research. And I'm finding more and more where they are getting to root cause. A good friend of mine took me over to Mayo back, it was last year I guess I was over there. And they have a building that's a 3-story building that does research on lifestyle medicine. And we're seeing some changes there. We really are. And we'll see it as you'll see who my references are. And this is the United States Surgeon General. Dietary excess and imbalance causes much disease and death. Diet has a vital influence on health. 5 of the top 10 killers are directly related to diet. This includes heart disease, cancer, stroke, diabetes, and atherosclerosis, clogged arteries. And I believe even a couple more than just the 5 can be associated with diet. Surgeon General continues, it is clear that diet contributes in substantial ways to the development of these diseases, and that modification of diet can contribute to their prevention and control. It's interesting, as I go to Rwanda, as Rhoda was saying, it's our 15th program, not our 15th year, but we're in the middle of our 15th program. Sometimes I go and sometimes I stay here because I just have to go for 3 weeks, and I can't always do that. And as I go into the bush in rural Rwanda, I don't see Syndrome X. I don't see the problems of hypertension, high cholesterol, obesity. Why? They eat different there. They're in the sunshine there. They go to bed at night there. They exercise there. You know, there's no way growing up on a farm that I would have ever told my daddy he needed to go to the gym, or my granddaddy, or my great-granddaddy. Those men cleared fields. They put in post holes, in the mountain rock. I mean, those guys were fit. There's a huge, we call it a fluent diet. And so as you look at countries that start into, like, again, Rwanda, as you see Kigali, and President Paul's goal is to be the Singapore of Africa by 30. And as we look at the correlation of what they're eating in Kigali versus what they eat out there is in the rural area is totally different. The health issues are totally different because it's what they're eating. Metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome is a group of conditions that increase the risk of heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes. These conditions include hypertension, high blood pressure, high blood sugar, too much fat around the waist, and high cholesterol or triglycerides. And we're learning more and more that visceral fat, that weight around the waist is a challenge and can cause problems. Metabolic syndrome means having 3 or more of these conditions, but having even one of the conditions increases the risk of serious disease. The number of people with metabolic syndrome is growing. Up to 1/3 of the United States adults have it. Healthy lifestyle changes can slow or stop metabolic syndrome from causing serious health concerns. It was interesting as I was listening last weekend to the different folks speaking. And, Carson's up there talking, Neil Nedley's up there talking, Dr. Peter McCulloch's up there talking. And they're talking about what we used to think it was genetically predisposed. And now they're saying that may only be 5%. Your granddaddy smokes and he gets lung cancer. Your daddy smokes and he gets lung cancer. You smoke and you get lung cancer. Is that genetically predisposed? Ask a kindergartner, say, Mr. That's because you're smoking. And it's true that we can get health challenges, and it can be that our family and even the neighborhood has it. But it could be we all have the same lifestyle stuff, especially here in East Tennessee, because we do what our mama did. We do what our daddy did because that's how they did it. Or our granddaddies or whatever. We're very prone in East Tennessee in western North Carolina to do what our kinfolk did or what our neighbors did. Therefore, we're going to have the same diseases if we have bad habits. Healthy lifestyle changes can slow or stop metabolic syndrome from causing serious health concerns. Having high blood pressure puts one at risk of heart disease. This is the first one we're going to take a look at is hypertension. And I'll spend more time on hypertension than the others just to give an example. And a lot of times, folks say, well, just give me a pill for high blood pressure. Or where they come to see me and they'll say, Walt, just give me a healthy pill for high blood pressure. I don't want one that has side effects, but just give me a healthy pill. I was telling Dale Bigtree a week ago, some of the challenges, and I said, we've got to have trust back into the medical system. People don't trust them because of challenges. And I shared a story. I was down in Hancock County, Mississippi. It was probably around 11, 12, somewhere in there. Oh, yeah, it was 11. Remember when the tornado come through here in 11? And so we also went down to help in Hancock County after Katrina. So it was before 11. I'm thinking of when I went down there with y'all for the tornado thing. But I went to Hancock County helping with the hurricane, and they lost a lot of firefighters. And firemen from all over the United States went down to East Hancock County, and we helped them down there, whether we were running I-10 or we're running house fires or medical calls or whatever. And I was sitting there one day, and I was talking to the assistant fire chief as we were waiting on a call to come in, and you look at him and tell he wasn't doing right. I mean, he was sick. And I said, do you have any health concerns? Yes. And he mentioned these, metabolic syndrome. And I said, well, can I help you? And he goes, well, what do I have to do? So I started sharing with him some lifestyle things like, what do you eat for breakfast? What do you eat for dinner? What do you eat for supper? What do you drink? What time do you go to bed? Tell me about your exercise program. And I started sharing with him what he needed to do, and he stopped me real quick, and he says, nope, I have no interest in that. He said, my doctor said I had Southern Mississippi syndrome. And all I have to do, he said, is just go see him and take that pill. I can eat whatever I want to and do whatever I want to. And that's what a lot of people like to do. They just want to do whatever they want to. Think of the people that, I'm sure, Doc, that you've had patients that had diabetes and they'll control that insulin real good, but they'll have that donut or that eclair. And even on the healthy side, they'll come in and they'll say, well, give me something for reversing diabetes or give me something for reversing high blood pressure. I don't even talk to them about that. Yes, there's some things that can help, but I'd rather look at the cause, fix the cause, because if I give them sell them something, they're going to have to come back and keep buying it. Let's get rid of it. And I've shared this analysis before. If I take a piece of sandpaper and I'm rubbing my arm, what's going to happen? It's going to take the hide off of it. But you come up and say, honey, let me put some medicine on it. And you put medicine on it. And when you leave, I'll go to rubbing it again. And you come back tomorrow and you say, oh, that's looking pretty bad. Oh, yeah, it's getting worse. You want to put some more medicine on it? You put more medicine on it. And you leave, I go to rubbing it. Is it going to heal? You've got to stop the cause. The challenge is, many times people don't want to stop the cause because them biscuits and gravy sure do taste good. I was raised up in East Tennessee. I know what that food tastes like. Banana pudding. I mean, my grandma's banana pudding it was good. But I ain't had it in a long time. Is our tongue more important than our health? And even when you go back to the Bible, you can look back. Is there diet issues back in the Bible? There is. There's quite a few of them, actually. So, high blood pressure. We'll look at this one first. We'll talk about what it is and what are some of the causes. Because you got to get rid of the cause. You got to get rid of the sandpaper to fix it. You don't even want to mask and manage. Maybe you don't want to use the medication, but you don't even want to use the natural stuff if you can get rid of it. That's the goal. So, having high blood pressure puts one at risk for heart disease and stroke, which are leading causes of death in the United States. In 22, and that's one of the problems as you look at statistics, they're a couple years behind. In 22, high blood pressure was a primary or contributing cause of 685,875 deaths in the United States. That's a mess of people, y'all. That's family members, that's kinfolk, that's neighbors. About 1 in 5 deaths related to COVID-19 were people who had a history of hypertensive disease or hypertension. Nearly half of the adults have high blood pressure, 48.1%, 119 million people. This is defined as a systolic blood pressure greater than 130 or a diastolic blood pressure greater than, a systolic greater than 130 or a diastolic greater than 80, or taking medications for high blood pressure. Those are the 3 things that contribute to the definition of hypertension. About 1 in 4 adults with high blood pressure have their blood pressure under control, 25.5% and 27 million. Half of the adults, 45%, about half, with uncontrolled high blood pressure have a blood pressure of 140 over 90 or higher. That's high, y'all. And I'm reading here from the CDC. Annual costs associated with high blood pressure were estimated to be $2.19 billion in the United States in 2019. You know, I wonder if, where they're going around cutting cost. What kind of costs could we cut in healthcare if we just started having healthier food? Start exercising, healthier things that we drink. We could cut out a whole lot of excess costs. So what are some of the root causes? There's quite a few of them, actually. And this is not conclusive. There's more items, so I'm just sharing some of the major ones this evening. Stress. Stress is huge. Stress can cause hypertension through repeated blood pressure elevations as well as by stimulation of the nervous system to produce large amounts of vasoconstricting hormones that increase blood pressure. When you're stressed, adrenaline goes up, your cortisol goes up, potassium goes down. It's going to affect hypertension. It's just, you're going into fight or flight. When you go into fight or flight, your blood pressure goes up, your clotting factor goes up, your pulse goes up, communication to the nerves goes up, glucose can go up, but guess what happens to digestion? It shuts it down. And Harvard found that actually during that fight or flight situation, just the body's healing factor slows down. But there's people who are in fight or flight all the time. Do you know any of them? I mean, they're just wound up over everything. There's people who just enjoy being wound up, I think. They have OCD of just worrying about stuff. They probably even have dreams about worrying stuff. Is that going to affect blood pressure? It sure will. Stress triggers the release of various hormones in your body, primarily cortisol and adrenaline. Also, we're dumping potassium. I have a good friend, he's a physician up in the D.C. area, and he called me one day and he said, Walt, he says, I got a good friend, another physician that's having hypertension. He doesn't want to take any meds. He said, we know that potassium deficiency can cause hypertension. What's a good source of potassium? What was the problem? He was still trying to macromanage. See, he had that mentality of looking at signs and symptoms and what was his problem. His potassium is low, so let's give him some potassium. But why was his potassium low? Because he's stressed out. Address the stress. But we went ahead and did blackstrap molasses, and it worked. He actually came off his hypertensive meds by doing blackstrap molasses. There was enough potassium there to get his potassium back where it belonged. There's different kinds of stress, actually 3 kinds of stress, but I'll only talk about 2 of them. Acute stress Immediate onset, which forces the body into an immediate reaction. Minor traffic accident, an argument, impending deadline, is the American Psychological Association. Do y'all ever have an acute stress? Absolutely. Someone pulls out in front of you. To me, Newport has way too much traffic. And then when I go to places like New York City, when I go to New York City now, I tell them, you haul me somewhere, you carry me there. I had to go in New York City and pick up some supplies a couple months ago. It's crazy. It took us over an hour to get across the George Washington Bridge. I don't want to drive in that stuff. It drives me nuts. It's acute stress for me. Then you have chronic stress. Long-term stress, unrelenting job, family pressures, sleep deprivation, strained roles and responsibilities at work and at home. So which do you think is going to cause more of a problem? Because see, during stress, you've got those hormones jumping up, and that can cause hypertension. Which is more of a problem, acute or chronic? Chronic, yeah. Because acute, remember in psychology, what was the stress? Eustress. Remember eustress, studying that in psychology? Supposedly they said that was good for us. But that's more of an acute issue for a short period of time. But it's that chronic, that relentless stress that we have because of that job we have, or that financial situation, or health problems that you have, or a relationship, or young'uns. Are there problems with young'uns today? I have people coming in, and Neil Nedley taught me years ago when I took his depression training course. He said that he used to call them flags. He calls them something else different, I think, today. But he said one of the flags for depression is where grandparents raise grandchildren. Now, Neil says you need 3 or more to start having problems with depression, but that's one. I have people who come to the store, and they are great-grandparents raising great-grandchildren because their children and grandchildren are in prison for drugs. And so that great-grandparent is having to raise those great-grandchildren. Is that stressful? Absolutely. Dehydration can cause hypertension. The amount of water in your body directly influences blood volume, which in turn affects blood pressure. Water intake is crucial for maintaining optimal blood pressure levels. Staying hydrated helps ensure the heart can effectively pump blood through the blood vessels to the rest of the body, supporting healthy blood flow and pressure readings. When you're dehydrated, you don't have as much water going to the brain. Is the brain, is that any relationship to stress? When you're dehydrated, your kidneys need good water supply. And if you're dehydrated, can that affect your kidneys? And the kidneys are the switches that can help to regulate blood pressure, we'll look at in just a moment. And when you're dehydrated, your conductivity goes up. That's the electrical system in the body. When conductivity goes up, hypertension goes up. There's just a number of reasons that dehydration can affect your hypertension. Obesity. Now, this is one that's been out there a long time. They've been studying this for many years. The prevalence of obesity has tripled over the past 5 decades. The prevalence of obesity has tripled over the past 5 decades. Just go back and look at Greenville newspaper. 1960, 1950. Look at the class of 1950 and 1960 and see how many of those high school kids were obese. You might find one versus seeing the high school class of 2025. It's a big difference. Obesity, especially visceral obesity, that visceral fat is closely related to hypertension, increasing the risk of primary hypertension by 65 to 75%. Hypertension is a major risk factor for cardiovascular disease. The leading cause of death worldwide, its prevalence is rapidly increasing following the pandemic rise in obesity. As I work with people in Kigali, it's such a difference. I mean, we have a huge range. Like Rhoda said, right now, most of the people, we've got 40-some people going through the program right now. It's a 2-week program it's like 7 in the morning to 5 at night every day of the week. And you may have a person who's an ambassador sitting right here, and you got a person who's a farmer sitting right here. You'd never know the difference. It's just, I mean, they came back from years ago before genocide, and most of them grew up on farms and didn't have much. But it is true, as I watch those people, they've come into Kigali, they start to do this. And as they do this, the hypertension's there, the diabetes is there. You know, those healthy syndrome X issues are there. Sleep deprivation. Now, sleep deprivation, actually, the American Heart Association, June of 22, actually put it as number 8 of concerns for hypertension. Actually, cardiovascular disease, stroke. But that didn't hit the American Heart Association until 22. The American Heart Association recommends adults get 7 to 9 hours of nightly sleep to promote optimal heart and brain health. But it's interesting, you'll read some other folks that say 8 to 9. And if you go back to the Breezel-Belloc study or the Alameda County study, which is 6,900 people over a 15 or 16-year period, at 9 years, they found this, 7 to 9, but then as they got to the 15th year, they changed it to actually, if you get less than 8 hours sleep, you die quicker. If you get more than 9 hours sleep, you die quicker. Promotes optimal health and brain health. Sleep is huge. Ben Carson was talking about the brain this last weekend, and he talked about the effects of exercise on the brain. He talked about the effects of sleep on the brain. It's huge. Very, very big. I have people come in, they go to bed at 1 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning. I had someone just the other day, last week. When do you go to bed? 6 o'clock in the morning. And it's not because they work third shift. I'm just a night person. Why did God turn the light out? There's a reason he turned the light out. And as you look at the physiology of what happens when we're asleep, those hours before midnight, we're twice the hours of sleep after midnight. I had a good friend, Dr. Walter Strachan. Did anybody know Strachan? He was a psychiatrist. He was at Loma Linda. Amazing guy. Strachan went to bed between 4 and 4:30 at night. Got up at 1. He got 8 to 9 hours of sleep every night. And he just believed in those hours before midnight. And Brad's the one that taught me about the glymphatic system. Huge. What happens with the glymphatic system? Because when we went to school, the brain was white. It didn't show a lymphatic system in the brain. But we now know there is one. And you got to be asleep those hours before midnight for it to really do a good job. People with irregular sleep patterns may face substantially higher odds of high blood pressure than those who stick to a schedule, even when they get the recommended amount of sleep every night. Did you ever read that where I think it's in the spring when folks, that 1 hour change? Have you ever read research on that? Just that next day, the percentage of heart attacks, it's like 24% increase that next day of heart attacks. Amazing. Just not getting that 1 extra hour of sleep. Excess sodium. We have to have salt, y'all. Is that true? You got to have salt. The biggest problem with salt is that girl with the umbrella. She'll kill you. Look at, your Celtic salt, your Himalayan salt is much better, but yet it's still salt. And even with that, you have to be cautious. But we can't just never have any salt because our body requires some salt. Unless you're just eating a whole lot of celery. Sodium can increase blood pressure for some people. Controlling sodium means more than putting down the salt shaker. It also means reading food labels, and that is huge. Most sodium we eat is hidden in processed foods such as tomato sauce, soups, condiments, canned foods, and prepared mixes. Look for the word soda, sodium, the symbol Na on the labels. These words show that sodium is present. And again, American Heart Association. Labels, read the labels, read the labels, read the labels. Let me talk about a label. Has anybody ever eaten Jif peanut butter? I'll tell you, it's real good. It's been a while, but read the label. See, if I took a bunch of y'all, and I do this when I go in the school system, I'll line up about 10 kids, and I'll say, okay, stand there. And then I have them go and move around to the tallest kid to the shortest kid. And then I'll say, well, Johnny is taller than Billy, and there's a comma there. But Billy and Obie are the same, so there's an and in between there because they're the same height. It's the same thing on the labels. So when you read your labels, if there's a comma, it means the item to the left there's more of, the item to the right is less of, unless there's an and. It means it's the same amount. So go take a look at Jif peanut butter. The first item is peanuts. The second item is sugar. What is in between? And. That means legally you could call it sugar butter as easily as calling it peanut butter. A lawyer would argue that till the cows come home because it's as much sugar as there is peanuts. So you got to look where it is on the label. Is there a comma? Is there an? What is in that food? Kidney function. Now we're back to kidney function. Now we're just looking at renal issues, not dehydration causing renal function issues, but just have got kidney problems. And we're seeing more and more folks out there that have kidney problems, and that can be side effects of various things. The kidneys help control blood pressure by filtering waste, balancing electrolytes, and regulating fluid levels. When they function properly, or when they do, they remove extra fluid and keep blood pressure within a healthy range. If the kidneys become damaged, they may struggle to filter blood effectively, leading to fluid buildup and increased blood pressure. Lack of exercise. That's a huge one. The top two things Carson talked about, Ben Carson, about brain function was exercise and sleep. Yes, water and nutrition, but he actually said exercise of any part on the body has the most effect on the brain. I think it has effect on the whole body, increases perfusion. But he found, who's to argue the brain with Ben Carson? But he said it is so important for cognitive function to have adequate exercise. And that's where Kempner over at Duke University found exercising 4 times a day significantly improved brain function. Because you don't just drink water once a day, you drink it multiple times a day. If you work on a farm, you don't just get out there and work for, 20 minutes and then you don't work again. You're working all day long. Regular exercise makes the heart stronger. A stronger heart can pump more blood with less effort. So the force on the blood vessels goes down. This lowers blood pressure. Becoming more active can lower both the top and the bottom blood pressure numbers. Regular exercise also helps a healthy weight. Was weight a part of hypertension? Yes. If one is overweight, losing even 5 pounds can lower their blood pressure. I'm reading from Mayo Clinic here. Mayo's pretty good at research. I enjoy reading Mayo. It takes about 1 to 3 months for regular exercise to have an impact on the blood pressure. The benefits last only as long as one continues to exercise. And so when people come and they start a lifestyle program with us and they get feeling all better and they go, I'm good now. I can go back to eating that hog jowl and chitlins and biscuit and gravy. I've lost that weight. My heart's doing good. They're using the sandpaper again. You can't go back to the cause, or you're expecting to get the same results. Smoking. Smoking is the leading cause of preventable death in the United States. Actually, WHO says if they, how the FBI has their most wanted list? The World Health Organization, their top on the their most wanted list is the utilization of tobacco. WHO says if they can wipe out the utilization of tobacco worldwide, it would significantly save lives and reduce health problems. Smoking is a risk factor for high blood pressure, which can lead to heart attack and stroke. I'm reading here from the American Heart Association on the smoking. Smoking exposure to secondhand smoke increases the risk for buildup of plaque inside the arteries called atherosclerosis. High blood pressure, also called hypertension, is known to speed up this process. Blood pressure increases in the short term every time one smokes. And there's 3 kinds of smoke you can get. You can get smoke when you smoke. You can get the side stream smoke, which is the smoke coming off the cigarette that you're smoking. And you can get secondhand smoke where a person's breathing it out and you're breathing that secondhand. Certain medications. I'm reading from GoodRx. Non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, NSAIDs, some antidepressants, and some birth control pills can all raise one's blood pressure. Steroids, decongestants, and stimulant medications can also cause high blood pressure. If you're on, see, one of the things you want to do is, if you're having, people come into me and they have these side effects. Well, what medications are you taking? Could it be a side effect of the medication? As you look that up, yes. Well, go back to your physician and say, is there another medication can do that issue until we can get you fixed that you don't have that side effect? Alcohol. Can you see why you got to look at a bunch of things here to figure out what it is? Just don't take you a pill. There's a whole bunch of things that can cause it. Alcohol, we don't see that much here, except in some of the areas that I live. Moonshine's pretty high. A cause and effect relationship between regular alcohol consumption and blood pressure elevation and hypertension was first suggested in 1915. Recent epidemiological and clinical studies have demonstrated that chronic ethanol consumption, more than 3 drinks per day, is associated with an increased incidence of hypertension and an increased risk of cardiovascular disease. So does that mean I can do 2? Why are you shaking your head no? Because it's not good. Turn your liver yellow. It's not good on brain cells. And there's other health problems also. You know, when I go into the school system, how many of you remember Art Linkletter? It's amazing what these kids will tell you. I'm sure Rhoda gets them when she goes in the school system. They'll tell you anything. And I ask them, what's the problem with alcohol, drinking alcohol? And these little kids will say, it makes mom and dad do stupid stuff. Is that true? It's true. Energy drinks. It looks like we're only going to get through hypertension tonight. Research shows that drinking one 16-ounce energy drink can increase blood pressure and stress hormone responses significantly. This raises a concern that the response changes could increase the risk of cardiovascular events. Talk to someone from the emergency department. They will tell you, especially a few years ago, they had so many young teenagers coming in with cardiac events because of these Red Bulls or these high caffeine drinks. Diabetes. Hypertension and diabetics are well known to go hand in hand, with 75% prevalence of hypertension among persons with diabetes. So if you have diabetes, you have a huge chance of getting hypertension. So what do? Address the diabetes, if that could be the only trigger they have for their hypertension. Ultra-processed foods. Ultra-processed foods is manufactured foods that's sparse in whole foods and contains ingredient extracts from foods as well as artificial or the ingredients for extracted from foods. It's not from the eating the whole food itself, as well as artificial substances. UPF is typically nutrient poor, low in fiber, high in refined carbohydrates, added sugar, sodium, and preservatives. And that's a lot of the food out there today, processed foods. Go into the grocery store. Where is the healthiest place? In the middle or in the side? in the side, in the produce section, or in the freezer section. In the freezer, you've got frozen strawberries and frozen mangoes and blueberries. Yeah. You actually can have a higher nutritional value in frozen food because they pick it vine ripe and flash freeze it. Where some of the other foods which go into the other part of the produce section, they pick that before it peaks out on that bell curve, like on your hay. They're picking it here. Like maters. Where do they pick maters? We said green. Where in Cotton County, they'll pick the maters where it just has a hint of red on it, and then they'll pick it. But it's not full nutrition there. MPF consumption is significantly associated with the elevated risk of incidences of hypertension in the United States middle-aged adults. There's a growing body of evidence on the adverse cardiovascular health consequences of UPF consumption. Do you remember back when we were kids, what were our grandparents eating? It was in the evening, and they got these little trays. What were they called? And they put TV dinners on it. It's just easier as we get older to get something more prepared than to just making it from scratch. You just kind of get tireder as you get older. And so it's what it's talking about here. As we get older, we're more prone to gravitate toward just make it easier, make it simpler, and not going to that, cooking it from scratch. Encouraging the replacement of UPF, and I'm reading from the Journal of American Heart Association in UPF issues. Encouraging the replacement of UPF in significantly red and processed meat, sugar, sweetened beverages, and margarine with unprocessed or minimally processed food may be helpful for reducing the risk of developing hypertension. Do they have it? Do they understand it? They do. These guys are understanding it. I think the big issue that we see today, and there are some folks that just choose not to, but I had a guy come into me just mad as a cat on a hot tin roof the other day, about a couple months ago. His little boy was sick and went to the emergency department, and he did not give him an antibiotic. I said, what did he say he had? He said he had a virus. Well, no, antibiotic don't work on viruses. But I wanted an antibiotic. We need to fix that problem. Antibiotic's what fixes it. No, it's not going to fix that virus. But that's what I paid him for. I went in there and I paid for that emergency room. I expected some medicine for it. Do we see that sometime? The customer is demanding it. They don't want to change their ways. Added sugar. Consuming too much added sugar can raise blood pressure and increase chronic inflammation, both of which are pathological pathways to heart disease. The effects of added sugar intake, higher blood pressure, inflammation, weight gain, diabetes, and fatty liver disease are all linked to an increased risk for heart attack and stroke, according to Harvard. Added sugar. Do you all remember when we were kids? Remember the sugar bowl on the table? Y'all remember that? We had our vinegar jar. We had our bowl of sugar. Now, my mama thought the brown sugar was healthy sugars. That was just white sugar with molasses in it. But, I mean, we just poured that sugar on there. We're learning. But sugar can increase, according to Harvard, hypertension, atherosclerosis, clogged arteries. Numerous investigations show the association between high blood pressure and atherosclerosis. The results of these studies are reflected in guidelines and risk assessment. We're just talking hydraulics here, y'all. If you're washing your truck and you want more pressure out of your garden hose, what do? You put a smaller tip on it. You make that lumen smaller, it's going to increase pressure. That's just hydraulics. Arteriosclerosis, that's hardening of the arteries. Arteriosclerosis encompasses several types of conditions that involve the thickening and hardening of arteries. These conditions can contribute to reduced blood flow, hypertension, and increased risk of cardiovascular disease. If you have an old bilge pump that you're pumping the creek, and that hose kind of flexes when the pump goes, You've seen those pumps pumping out the creeks. Well, if that hose kind of flexes when the pressure's higher versus a rigid, the pressure's going to be higher in the rigid pipe. The same is true if our vascular system gets rigid. It's just hydraulics. So, what do we look at? Is it stress? Is it dehydration? Is it obesity, sleep deprivation, excess sodium, kidney function, lack of exercise, smoking, medications? Take a look at your meds, see if there's something that can be swapped with, or fix that problem so you don't have to use that no more. Alcohol, energy drinks, diabetes, ultra-processed foods, added sugar, atherosclerosis, and arteriosclerosis. Where did this information come from? Harvard, Mayo, Cleveland Clinic. So as we look at our health problems, be an investigator. Be a Sherlock Holmes. Look and see what the cause. It's on the internet. You can go out there and look Mayo Clinic and look causes. You can go out there to Cleveland Clinic and look causes. You can go and put in hypertension cause NIH and go to NIH and read the studies that show what lifestyles can cause it. And then you go back through here and you say, okay, what can I do for my stress? What can I do for dehydration? That's an easy fix. Just drink the water. Obesity. I had a lady come in today. She says, oh, I drink a lot of water. Well, what else you drink? Well, I drink a whole lot of coffee too. Well, you got a diuretic there. Obesity, sleep deprivation, excess sodium, just quit using the salt. Or go to something healthier and less. Just exercise. That's not very expensive. Just go out there 4 times a day. As Duke said, just if it's 5 minutes, go out there for a power walk for 5 minutes. It's amazing the benefit it can give you. So I think we're out of time. Is that right, Rhoda? And so I encourage you as you look at your health issues, investigate, pray, ask God what you need to do. He's the medical director. And you'll get feeling a whole lot better.
Do you have more presentation?
I have more.
Okay. So we'll bring you back?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. So we'll do a part 2. We'll figure that out. Okay, we'll take a few questions before we close the evening out. Does anyone have a question? Curtis is on that side, so I'll go over here.
Walt, why is it that there is very few lifestyle doctors available, and they're few and far between?
I think there's not as many trained that went into lifestyle medicine. And so they weren't trained in it. They know the other, and so they don't know that. And so they would have to go back and get a lot more training in that.
Because to find one, it's like, okay, you have to go like New York or someplace, and it's just really difficult.
I have a question about...
But if I can jump back to that one. Okay. I can speak to the physicians in Cott County. And over the last 21 years of being there, the majority of them, when someone comes to me with a health concern, and I share with them this kind of information, and I say, okay, go back to your attending and see what they think. They're supportive. They just hadn't studied it. They're so busy. I mean, there are docs in Cott County that if you come in about your hypertension, you got 6 minutes. At the end of the 6 minutes, well, that's all I have time for. But doc, I have a question on my diabetes. No, it's another visit. You can't even talk about another diagnosis, only that one. And they have 6 minutes because just the way things have gotten from a corporate standing. And they don't have time to go back and do all this study. They're just trying to, they're paddling. And they want to do a good job. I really believe it. And so they just don't have the education.
You mentioned smoking. Do you want to speak to vaping?
Vaping,
Is
yeah.
it any better?
What's that, popcorn? What do they call it, Doc? Is it popcorn lungs now from vaping? And there's problems. Vaping is not a good thing.
Any other questions? Okay.
Hey, here's one right here.
Water. The water in the plastic jugs, or what do you think about that? I hear that they can create some kind of problem with the water if it gets hot and cold.
Especially if they've set out in the sun.
Right.
We had that concern with Helena. I mean, I had pallets and pallets of water at the fire station, and it was outside. You know, as we look at water, those that are up on the mountain that have spring water, you're blessed. Well water. But it's like this jug right here, it's got stainless steel inside, and so it's been. It's going to sound plumb crazy, but if that's all you have, drink some water.
That's so convenient.
Yes, it is. But try to pre-plan and get something. Get you a mason jar. They may think you're drinking moonshine, but get you a mason jar.
Hey, Walt. You mentioned a few websites. Are there any books you'd recommend if you wanted to understand better lifestyle and lifestyle medicine?
Absolutely. There's a lady named Dr. Agatha Thrash and her husband Calvin. They wrote some very good books. There's a guy called Neil Nedley. Neil and I were speaking together last week. We actually ate dinner together out there. Neil wrote a book called Proof Positive. He wrote a book called Depression: The Way Out. And what's the brain one called?
Which one? Oh,
The brain?
Optimizing Your Brain.
Optimizing Your Brain. Good book. So Neil's a good one. Jethro Kloss, y'all remember that book? The Back to Eden? That was a good book. I personally like reading some of John Harvey Kellogg's stuff. He had some interesting stuff. But again, I do like going and reading from those places I mentioned earlier, Mayo and Cleveland Clinic. And you have to kind of cipher some of, sift through just as we read those 9 laws of health and say, okay, does it fall within that criteria? Then, yeah, let's take a look at that. And maybe you I like looking at various ones and see, do they all agree? Not just one, but who else is saying the same thing? And look at the research there. But yeah, if you're wanting to pick an author, Thrash is a good one, Nedley's a good one.
This lady has a question about
Yes.
water, spring water versus purified water. Is there a difference? Which is
Spring
better?
water's awful good. The challenge with well water is when I grew up on the mountain, I mean, you didn't have white clothes like that. You didn't have white underwear. It was orange. And so your spring water can be hard. It's better to have soft water than hard water. I like spring water. Get water what you can. I have people say, well, Walt, all I can afford is get city water. Well, it's better to drink city water than no water.
Yeah.
Even though I don't care for city water.
Sorry, mine's not a question. I was just going to add that they make some really high quality filters for water too. Like, is it called the Burke filter? Berkey, but there's a lot of them. Even if you have city water, you could get a nice filter to go with that, and it can really help.
Absolutely.
Hi, yes. I also understand that some worms and parasites can also cause hypertension and high blood pressure. And do you promote people doing detox and dewormers every now and then as well?
Let's go back to when we were kids. Did we do spring cleaning? We sure did. Yeah, who grew up here? Did y'all do spring cleaning? You sure did. And so, yes, there's some things you can do for that.
Okay, Would you like to end the
Yes.
session with prayer? And
We actually have a gardening class coming up.
oh, okay.
And that's going to be, you have that? I don't have my phone with me. That's going to be
I don't know.
like 2 weeks, I think.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, we got a gardening class. If any of y'all, we have how-to classes here. And did y'all get their emails? Did you get emails tonight?
Tonight I did, yes.
Good. So we can send out something to your emails, and some of y'all have come to our different classes, how-to classes, and we have a lady coming in, and she's going to be speaking on Gardening 101 and some really good information on how do you grow a garden. And I mean, we got a lot of folks that know gardening, but we have some folks just they don't know, and don't have a green thumb, and she's going to talk about that.
Her name is Beth, and she's a master gardener.
Here in town.
In town.
Yeah.
Is it on a Thursday?
It's on a Thursday.
I think that it might be the 17th then of April.
Mm-hmm.
But
I think it is.
I will send out a notice.
It'll be 6 o'clock in the room we had supper in.
Okay.
Okay. Well, let's close with prayer. Our dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you so much that we could come together tonight and share. We thank you for the natural remedies you've given us, just the simple things of good nutrition like the supper we had tonight. Water and rest and sunshine and being happy. Most important, being able to trust in you. We're so blessed that we were raised up and grew up here in the Bible Belt, and we had parents and grandparents and great-grandparents taught us that foundation. Lord, we thank you for that. Lord, help us to take responsibility of our health. As you told us in 1 Corinthians 6 and 1 Corinthians 3, that our bodies don't belong to us. Your son bought it, and we're just caretakers. We're just keepers of that body. And so, Lord, give us the desire to do our own research on what foods are healthy, how you do a good exercise program, how much water do I need to drink. Help us to understand those basic things on how to take care of our bodies and be responsible, just like we take care of our car. Help us to have that responsibility of taking care of our bodies. Lord, we ask that you be with the folks as you travel home tonight. Give them safety. Send your angels before. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Good. Put September 9, I think it is, on your calendar. That's the next one. And we'll see you then, okay? Thank you.